Hello everyone, and welcome to torchsnuffers. I am your host, Colin Connors. With me, as always, is my wonderful co-host / Latina flavor, Alicia Garza.
Hello.
Also joining us today, the very amazing Ben Millier.
Hi, friends.
The always insightful Prince Ty.
Good evening.
The second most beautiful person on the podcast, Stephen Lehman. I'm the first.
Hey.
And I think Stephen froze at that. All right. And
I'm here.
Oh, he's here? All right.
Surprise every time to Steven. He's always like, oh my gosh, B.
Anyways, we also have joining us today the amazing Billy Garcia from Survivor Cook Islands. What's up? Hey, Billy. How are you?
Hey, everybody.
All right, so a bit of a programming note. We originally did have Rob from Survivor Thailand scheduled. However, the scheduling got completely messed up. I'm not saying it's 100% my fault.
But the rest of us are.
But everyone else is. So I apologize if you're watching this thinking Rob's going to be on. We're going to clear it all up. We don't intend to false advertise. I have been speaking with him. Hopefully we're going to get him on soon. It just happens to be some miscommunications. Anyways, let's take all of that aside. Let's move past it because it was the merged episode of Survivor Game Changers. It was a 2-hour-long episode. Oh, my goodness, and so much crazy crap happened. But first, Billy, I wanted to jump to you because you haven't been on in the past couple weeks, and I know you wanted to comment just briefly about how the whole Zeke Varner situation, and that's actually how the episode started, so it works. It started with Sarah getting a fantastic confessional about it, and along with Zeke getting a fantastic confessional about it, which is other stuff we're going to analyze moving forward. But anyways, Billy, what's your take on it?
My take on it is we got to remember that Varner is an old-school player, and in Varner's season of Survivor Australian Outback, there was an example of what Varner assumed, which is that Survivor doesn't pass up on intriguing backstories. In his season, Deb Eaton married her son. Like, what does that have to do with the game of Survivor? Nothing. But yeah, you got to go back and see Survivor Australian Outback. That had nothing to do with Survivor, but that was the way Survivor was back then. That if you had an intriguing backstory, that was your Survivor experience. That was what your story was about. And so that's what Varner comes from. And so he made the assumption, not having seen the previous season because they filmed back to back, that Zeke's backstory would not be passed up, that they would make that his Survivor story. And so he felt that since the whole world had seen it his first time playing, that he's doing such a great job of keeping it a secret, that this would be an example of how good Zeke is at keeping secrets, which is ironic because I don't think he's good at keeping secrets. But
we saw that.
But, yes, and that's why I feel like Varner, even though he made a huge mistake, I can see where his mistake is coming from. Having said all of that, now I'm going to get technical here with Survivor rules. Everybody's contract has the Survivor rules in it, and within those rules it says you cannot use someone's race, religion, or sexuality against them in any way in the game. So when Varner tried to use that as an example of how he could keep a secret, he actually broke the rule, and that is the reason why there was no vote. It was technically a DQ, and so that did not, Jeff being Jeff, he tried to minimize it. He tried to downplay it and say, you were going to vote him out, you're going to vote him out, as a way to saying it's a moot point that he's not getting the vote. So that was just a way of downplaying. But it was actually a DQ, which is why he didn't get to, if he'd have went to vote, then they could have edited all this out.
Mm-hmm.
But because it was a DQ, then now they had to show it to show what happened, that, there was no vote and that he got his torch snuffed anyway. So
that's very interesting because some of the questions we had on last week's episode, which was not really in the same tone as previous episodes because of the subject matter, I did bring up how CBS could have edited it. But I like how you're pointing out that no, CBS couldn't edit because Jeff Varner was, technically speaking, disqualified. And, of course, the show did a good job of covering that up. And I think, viewers, if you watch what we said about it last week, I think we did a good job of trying to find that middle ground. We all know that Jeff Varner has gotten fired from his job. Some people think it's justice. Some people think it's too much. But, it's just something – it got a very important conversation going. And I'm glad that the conversation's going. I just feel very bad for Zeke. And in some ways, I feel sympathy for Varner. But what I wanted to talk with you, Ty, was they gave the confessional to Sarah at the beginning of this episode about how her bond of Zeke is now better than ever. And it seems to be that almost anyone would have given a similar confessional. So why do you think the editors have chosen to give Sarah this type of confessional in this moment of the game?
Oh, sorry. Because Sarah is important to the end game. Honestly, I think Sarah's our winner. Yeah, I actually pegged her as my winner in my power rankings this past week. But I feel like it was to give her some important face time. Also, probably because the other person who could have done that confessional is Andrea, and Andrea was not a fan of Zeke by the end of the episode. Mm-hmm. So to that end, there's that to consider as well. But I think Sarah's important. So they wanted to. Can you break that down a bit more? Because Sarah, I think, is not going to be coming up a super lot as we analyze this episode. What is sticking out from Sarah to you right now? Why do you think she has the option to move back and forth between various groups? Groups have formed now, and all of the groups tonight were counting on her vote, and they are still in a position where they will need her vote moving forward. Both the people who were not in on the Ozzy boot and the people who were in on the Ozzy boot. Because there's 11 left. At least for next episode, they definitely need her. Well, but Steven, doesn't someone like Sarah playing the middle ground, doesn't that often spell disaster for them? Because, I mean, we see a lot of players try to play the middle ground, but how often does it truly work out? And in a season of game changers, don't you think this is going to put a target on her back if she does try to play the middle ground with too many episodes coming up?
I think it could, but luckily for Sarah, she was in this exact position in Cagayan and blew herself up. So I'd like to think she's learned from it, and conveniently was also final 11 when she blew herself up. But I definitely think that if she tries to do it for too long, it'll blow up. I think if she does it for the next round or two, she'll be okay. But yeah, I would say she can't do it too much longer. Otherwise, I could see it blowing up in the face.
All right. So that's a bit of a different take on it. Billy, I want to hear your thoughts real quick on Sarah before we move on to the next little topic.
Sure. She was the one player at that tribal council that did not forgive Varner. So yeah. I think her opinions were so strong that it warranted her getting the confessional.
So do you think that means she's winning this game? Or do you take it where Ty takes it, which is this positive stuff means she has a very solid chance of having a good end game?
I wouldn't say she's winning the game, but she definitely looks like she's going way deeper than some of the other players. Especially since Steven pointed out, she's been in this position before. So, I could tell you from a past player that whatever eliminates you gets replayed in your mind like a bazillion times, and you learn to get out of that situation so that you never get beaten the same way twice. And so I think Sarah is hopefully has learned from that situation, and hopefully we'll see that play out.
And Billy, you've learned not to fall in love with Candace, right? Is that? I had to make that little jab. You always get spoiled about Ty. You're itching. I'll let you have a moment of peace, but we do got to move on. You learn from your mistakes, unless you're Ozzy, in which case you make the same mistake. And we're going to talk about that morning over Ozzy. But before we get to that, Ben, this season they get down on the match, and normally Probst goes, "Oh my gosh, you're merged. Everyone has a feast. Everyone has a good time." But of course, since this is Game Changer, there had to be a twist in which two people had to volunteer to sit out. So my question to you is twofold, Ben. One, would it make sense at all to volunteer to sit out? Could that actually help your game? And two, are all these little kind of twists even necessary to the game? Because do you just think they take up too much screen time?
My initial reaction was they're trying too hard to really overplay the theme of the season. So I was a little frustrated by it because I don't think it added anything to the game, and I think that's my biggest concern of it all. If it actually contributed to something in the in the game at all, then whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's not like there was any mention of it any further after when it actually happened. So I think it was just production putting too much into the season because it's
it's Game Changers. We got to do crazy shit all the time. Steven, for instance, are we going to see something crazy with all right, next community challenge, either you participate in the challenge or you play with a bunch of cats, and it's this is the reward that we're doing because it's Game Changers. We got to keep changing it up. Okay, you can start a fire, but you can only use a watermelon shells. I don't know.
Real quick, I was going to say for the cats or immunity, I'm playing with the cats, but second bit, it's not like we haven't seen the you get to do the merge feast or something else thing before. If we're doing a time hop here back to Guatemala, they had the option to either compete in the first individual immunity after the merge, or they had the option to enjoy the merge feast. So it's not like this was like a brand new novel twist.
Well, let me just say though, but something like that, like Ben said, eating in the merge feast or participating in the immunity challenge, that has like a tangible result on the game. Whereas just having two people randomly sit out, I don't necessarily think has a tangible benefit to the game. It seems like saying, hey, in this immunity challenge, you can play with cats. I don't see how there's a tangibleness of it.
It's not even a matter of it being like a tangible benefit to the game or whatever. I just thought it was like they were trying to manufacture stuff happening when stuff could have happened organically. And
that's what I'm getting at. I do have a criticism for that. Ty, real quick, you made some interesting points in our little chat that the viewers can't see.
I'll say this. I don't think it was necessarily big, huge viewership move to do that. I will say I think it was probably useful for Brad Culpepper as a game player to have time to one-on-one talk with Ty to wrangle him back into working with him after he had been away for a bit, get some information on what had happened. I don't think it's super necessary, but it's not completely useless, would be my thought process.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, real quick, Billy, was this kind of useless, this weird little extra...
It depends on the players, because if it were me, I would have waited to see who on the other tribe would have sat, and if it was somebody I would have wanted to make a deal with, then I would have sat too. So it depends on the players. If the players, you know, that they have, which is with the exception of Suri, who I felt was like a deal maker, somebody who would be a deal maker with just about anybody, so long as it gets her further. With the exception of her, I felt like they didn't have the right players for this particular twist. And it's ironic that Suri completely ignored the twist, it seems like, at least from the end.
And Billy, if you're on the mat, are you going to not take the merge fees? Like, I don't see how you volunteer yourself out of this, because I don't think it helps you in any way.
If I'm at the bottom and I need to make a deal, and the person that sat on the other tribe is the person I need to make a deal with, fuck the food. I didn't go there to eat. I ate to win $1 million.
And okay, so I do think we've actually found the caveat, because I did think this was completely useless, but I like what you're saying. I still think odds are nothing good was going to come of this twist, and part of me does feel like with Game Changers, it really is becoming do the immunity challenge or play with the kittens level of just kind of silliness. But hey, it's Game Changers, right, Alicia? I want to hear your thoughts on this, because I just realized I haven't spoken to you. How have you been?
No, I keep putting my hand up and it keeps getting slapped down. No, I don't think it was very substantive. I like that point of maybe it would have allowed something to happen if something needed to happen, but it didn't. If they're really gonna try and mix it up, I would rather see something like a fun mix-up, like a race and like chop your merge food off of the ship, like at the beginning of an episode normally, and then it's like, let's see what you come up with. But like, let's do something different for the sake of doing it differently.
That would be a game changer.
And that would be a game-changing move. And Billy, want to say something real quick before we move on to the next little piece of information?
You know, playing producer like I like to do on Torch Snuffers. If it were me, I would have hit a clue for the hidden immunity idol right where they were sitting, and see who's paying attention.
Yeah, I was surprised that they didn't do that. I thought that they would have like.
And I'm talking about the two guys that sat out.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. I was thinking the two guys.
As soon as they saw it was Ty, they probably were just like, abort the idol.
Yeah. Yes, this guy's too many. And I actually did think they would go back to camp and there would be like a clue being like, you two have to work together, and that would be a bit more interesting. So before I get to the next point, I'm just gonna drink and.
Great.
Yeah.
Alicia! I love you, Alicia. You're so great. Billy, you're awesome. Todd, seriously, what the hell was up with Debbie pretending to be drunk? Is that a legitimate survivor strategy?
Yes, it is. For Debbie, anyway, it is. Because if Debbie wants to lull them into a false sense of security, then she needs to almost be so over the top that she becomes under the radar, and that's what she did, essentially. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but it seemed to have kind of worked in a sense. Now, will she keep it up? Who knows? But I mean, let's put it this way: as someone who is known to have quite a bit of wine from time to time, drinking water tonight, as it were. But like, I can understand the idea of them expecting you to be one thing and you doing another thing. To zag when you're expected to zig. And to that end, I mean, I don't know how much of a difference it'll make, but it was a neat little thing for Debbie. And considering she was like ready to like throw down and contort her neck in various ways over Brad Culpepper a few episodes ago, I think she's made a nice recovery.
Steven, real quick, I like the little quip you made.
Yeah, so I would just say it reminds me of Stacey Powell in South Pacific's, her opening confessional. They think I'm asleep, I'm not sleep.
Billy, do you think Debbie has any shot winning this game? Because, yeah, she has these crazy antics. Yes, she's fun to watch. But let's be clear. She's not doing anything really game-changery or anything, I would say, progressive for her own gameplay besides just not being voted out. We're going to get to you, Ty.
Wow. I don't want to skip ahead too far, but who made the big move tonight? Who's the one who took out Ozzy tonight? Thank you. Plus, I think if she sits next to Michaela, who's a hothead, I mean, who can't win next to Michaela? Ask her one question and she'll blow up for the rest of the final tribal council.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to get into interesting territory. And Ty, we're going to quickly talk about this. Yes, Debbie did say, kind of plant the idea of the edit, hey, let's get rid of Ozzy. But do you know who else planted a lot of ideas of who to vote off? People like Philip Shepard, and they never had any shot of winning office. So I say Debbie, honestly, is nothing more than a Philip Shepard type. Yes, Philip Shepard gets to control 1 or 2 votes, but eventually they turn around and look and go, this person never really had that much control.
I mean, let's put it this way. You went and said that Debbie didn't have any moves. She had a move tonight.
Okay.
I don't have her as my top contender because I know how Debbie gets to be. We saw how Debbie was with power in her last season. Debbie has power this season. We saw the preview. She's barking orders. Yeah. Debbie in power never ends well, so I don't have her as a contender. But I also do not contend that you're correct that she didn't do anything because she did.
Well, I will say that I will say she did do something tonight, but I honestly feel like almost anyone could have gotten the anti-Ozzy ball rolling. And like with someone like a Philip Shepard, just because you can control the vote 1 round doesn't mean it automatically blows them in the face. And it also doesn't mean people take you seriously. And right now, I don't think people take Debbie seriously enough to win. And I don't think she could do anything to cause people to take her seriously enough to win.
Then why did Andrea want to hide the plan from Debbie? Because she was afraid of how hard Debbie was playing. Debbie's playing hard. No one ever said that Philip Shepard was playing hard. They thought that Philip Shepard was a joke. If you think someone's playing hard, that means they're playing. I'm not with you on this.
Okay, well, I just got to say, though, what scenario does Debbie actually win in the end, though? Who does she actually beat if she sits next to?
Michaela. She could beat Michaela. She could beat Ty because Ty is a person. We've seen Ty at Tribal Council.
So Ty and Michaela, you guys are saying Debbie could beat right now under the given circumstances. Yeah. All right, and everyone seems to be in agreement. Billy, you agree also. You think that Debbie is possible to be a winner with everything?
It depends on who she sits next to.
Yeah.
It's you know, we're not in a season where we have anybody left that could sit next to anybody and win. So it depends on who they sit next to. And Michaela and Ty with Debbie, you got to go Debbie because Ty can't handle the final tribal council. We've seen that. And Michaela has a really, really hard time articulating and expressing herself without losing her temper.
Okay, that makes sense. So, Ty, you just want to say she's not going to win, but she's not a Philip. Is that your...
That's correct. That's correct. And the only 2 people I think have no chance of winning are Ty, Michaela, and actually a third, Troyzan, because he had no confessionals tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to continue
a 2-hour merge.
I'm going to say this. In my head, I see how there's slightly difference, but I do those in my mind. Debbie is just a Philip, just with not pink pants, just a slightly lower Philip. And I know you guys are going to argue with me until I'm saying until. She's slightly less than that until like 3 seasons from now where you're like, oh, Colin was right, as it typically is. That's my thoughts on Debbie. Ben, do you back me up on this before we get off the Debbie train?
For once, I'm going to back you and simply keep it at that.
Well, as long as Ben agrees with me, I have that. Debbie basically is a Philip. So something I wanted to highlight on, and this is kind of thinking more towards future editing, Alicia. Zeke was given a confessional right after it was announced that Brad and Ty were sitting out. And Zeke had a confessional basically where he was saying, like, oh, he was acting all villainy. And I guess what I'm getting at is Zeke going to be emerging as a GameBot villain type player? Because that is what the edit, I think, was showing us tonight. Because keep in mind, before last week, Zeke was getting kind of a middle of the road edit, but now he seems to be blooming. And I think he actually is being set up to be a villain.
I mean, we saw in his past season, he's very strategy driven. He's constantly, seeing what he can do and what can be done. But it really is in more of a game bot, like robot type way. He's not like Sandra where he's doing these little things to like change things in the game. He's more just like, okay, and what do I need to tell them? I'm going to go do that, which doesn't always end well, as we saw tonight. But his wheels are definitely turning, and he's definitely very focused on this game moving forward.
So you don't think he's getting the villain at it? And real quick, I just wanted to say to all the new viewers, Rob from Survivor Thailand, there was a scheduling conflict. It was completely my fault. My panel has been hissing at me. He will be joining us at a later date. So if you're looking for that, like I said, I do apologize. Ty, do you agree with me that Zeke is getting kind of a villainous GameBot edit, or is it just purely like a boring GameBot? Where do you think Zeke is right now on the edit?
Honestly, Zeke's episode tonight made me think very much of Adam from last season. Not necessarily that I think he's going to win, but that his edit fluctuated a lot between heroic, I'm doing this for my mom stuff, and I'm overplaying and pissing everyone off. Zeke last week, obviously, everyone came together around him, and rightfully so, given what happened to him. And then this week, he over-fucking plays, and everybody's pissed off with it, but he still survives. I think he's a little bit of both. He was kind of a villain in his own season, talking shit on David, about David's anxiety and so on and so forth. So I think that's just him. I think he's basically kind of a mean game bot, but also has redeeming human qualities as well. And we'll see that back and forth. I mean, I don't know. He's kind of a villain.
We're seeing that more and more with Survivor, the well-rounded, all the different parts of their humanity, not just the one aspect.
And Billy, that's something we've talked about. And this is something I'm pointing, which no one else is saying with me. We're in post-postmodern Survivor, and in post-postmodern Survivor, you get winners like Tony, who are just seem completely crazy, but that's just how they're edited. So, Billy, is Zeke a very good contender for the winner because we are seeing this multifaceted edit of him?
No, I think we're seeing a contender for show stealer maybe, but I don't think we're seeing a contender for a winner necessarily. I think he's burning so many bridges along the way. And quite frankly, that's just his game. His game is, it seems that now we're seeing for the second time that his game is, light the candles on both ends and hope it doesn't, burn him before the game is over. And I just think it is about to burn him. I think we're like 2 or 3 episodes away from his elimination.
And I agree with you, Ty. I want to get to you, but I've been, besides you agreeing with me quickly, we haven't spoken had a back and forth. Where is Zeke right now? Is Zeke just a game bot? And also, he seems to be making the same mistakes as the first season he played, but keep in mind, he never really got to recover from that first season. And that's something that happens a lot with back-to-back players is they don't really get a chance to recover and analyze their games.
I think what it comes down to is he's like us. He's such a fan of Survivor that he's looking to make plays like you always want to do in Survivor. And I don't necessarily think that it's applicable for where he's at in the game right now. So I think that's kind of the dissonance that's going on with his gameplay. I think he's trying too hard to play the game for it being the game of Survivor. So I think that if he wants to focus on actually winning the game, he needs to be more low key about what he's doing.
And I agree, because, I mean, Alicia's Zeke flat out got eliminated last season for doing this exact same thing. And then Zeke even had the confessional of being like, last season I took control too early, and now this season he's trying to take control when there's 12 people left. That's more than half the cast.
Yeah, unfortunately, again, you do have him and Michaela, these 2 players that are coming straight off of one season into another. And so you have Zeke on one end of the spectrum who is just kind of like, well, about it, and yeah, it blew up, but I'm gonna keep on going because this is what I do, and maybe it'll work this time. And then you have Michaela on the other end, who went so far in the opposite of her nature, closing everyone off and like closing herself off to the point where Suri is telling her, no, like you need to come back a little and allow people to see the real you. And so it's really challenging to come off of one season to another and adjust well. And I don't think either player, well enough. And I'm hopeful that maybe one or both of them will end up kind of figuring it out.
And Billy, let me just jump to you real quick because you've played Survivor before. You have experience that we don't have. Let's say it's Cook Islands, right? But then literally the moment you get home to Cook Islands, they say, "Hey, Billy, we're doing a second chance season. Come on." Do you think you would have had enough time to fully process everything that happened?
Absolutely not. It's taken me years to process. And then think about how much less my experience is to theirs and how much less that I have to analyze. And it's taken me years. Mm-hmm. So imagine them, like Zeke played for quite a bit more than I did. So it would take him like 5 or 6 years to analyze his game to where he could make heads or tails and what needs to change and if he's gonna change something, how would he change it? And then even then, it's like there's so many different ways to approach a scenario depending on what tools you have, and so to just go through each one and mentally play each one out and then tweak it. It takes years and years of every day thinking about it.
And that's something, Billy, I want you just to kind of talk about because I've heard people, and I've had people on this show and other Survivor players say they think about it every day, or almost every day, if not every day. You played in season 13. We're on season 34, Billy. How much do you honestly think about what you could have done differently, if you don't mind me asking?
No, I don't mind. Every night it creeps into my dreams. Every night. Every day somebody brings it up. Mm-hmm. Every time I go on social media, it's in my face. It's such a permanent part of my life that, quite frankly, I can't even imagine what my life would be like without it right now. And like it would be so different. It would seem like another human being. And let me just say for the record, there's certain survivors that like to say, "Oh, well, it doesn't define me, and I don't think about it every day," and they're full of shit.
And I kind of agree with you, Billy. Like I can see how, like, as a super fan like me, if I got to play and let's say I got the second one voted out, I would think about it every damn day. Granted, there would be a lot of days where I wouldn't think about it as much because I had so much going on, but stuff like that kind of creeps in. I don't see how you could escape it for forever. Obviously, some days you would think about it less, but I don't see it ever fully going away. So, Steven, I know you were a huge Suri fan, and Suri had a very interesting episode. She had a huge episode because she got a whole bunch of confessionals, and we saw her taking in Michaela. Now, what I want to know, Steven, is this. Does Suri and Michaela have legs? And does Suri have legs? Because that big edit came out of nowhere, and that could be a problematic sign for her future. Steven, I think you're muted. Oh. Now he's really muted. Try again, Steven. I want you to talk about this. You need to talk about this. Oh my goodness, that was loud. Holy bananas. All right, we can't hear you, Steven, but I want to talk with Ben about that, okay? Ben, what did you make of the Suri Michaela dynamic, and does this have legs? What's going on here?
I think it has legs, if only else because it really came out of nowhere, and I don't think it would come out of nowhere for no reason.
I kind of like that point you just made because in a merge episode, they have so much crap to cover, they're not really going to throw in filler. Alicia, what do you think? Is this the Suri Michaela? Is that the final? Are they two people in the final four? Like, what's going on with that?
I don't know about that, but I definitely think they're going to be a pair that's working together for a long time. I think if anyone is going to benefit, it will probably... Oh, shit. I don't know, actually. I was going to say it will probably be Suri. Is kind of saved and nurtured by Suri long enough because Suri is such a big target.
Yeah.
she could end up leaving Michaela in the game.
And that's actually what I think is very likely to happen.
Yeah.
I could see them.
Interesting.
Yeah. I could see them saying Michaela's not a threat. Let's take out Cerise. Steven, your mic's working. Just pontificate about how much you love Sierra, Michaela, and how much you love them coming together. I'm sorry, Cerise and Michaela.
So first of all, the Cerise Michaela scene was just really nice because it was really nice just to see them connect and to see Cerise sort of take Michaela under her wing and say, "Hey, like, I've been there. This is what you got to do." Like, I've been a huge Cerise fan since 2006, so like to see this, like, I felt like it was a return to form for Cerise. Like, I felt like I was watching Exile Island or Micronesia again when I saw her, and I was like, I'm just so damn glad she's back on my television. Like, so I would say, like, with regards to Cerise's edit tonight, if she had gone to Tribal before this episode, and if she had been a heavy player, like, a big featured player in the previous rounds, then I'd be concerned about her spike in visibility. But because she hasn't really had to do anything yet, I'm not that concerned for her edit tonight. I think this is just sort of the beginning of her story arc. Okay. But what does concern me is that, we're going to get, a Micronesia Panama ending where she kicks everyone's ass but falls just short, and that would break my heart.
All right, so Ty, you're the edit master. Should I have been worried about not seeing Suri up till now, or was it par for the course like Steven said? Because Steven made a good point that Suri's tribe hasn't been to tribal council until this episode. So what do you make of that?
The benchmark for a person having such a quiet pre-merge and then winning is, at least in recent time, Natalie Anderson from San Juan del Sur. She was mostly behind Jeremy. She didn't go to tribal council a ton. And then she came, was a powerhouse, and blew everything away at the end. It's possible we could be saying that. There's a lot that's still up in the air. I think, at least in the next 2 or 3 episodes, she'll be fine. Just because there's a lot of volatility and because I don't think the brain trust in the quote-unquote majority alliance is that strong, to your point about Debbie, I suppose. But, like, to that end, I think she could have some legs. I think we're going to see at least a little bit more of her and Michaela bonding because we saw so much of it tonight, or about now. So.
Well, and Ty, I hope you're ready to speak some more. All right, so take a deep breath.
Sure.
Because what we haven't talked about yet was the first big thing that happened this episode was Haley Ford, your winner pick, and one of the biggest winner picks of most fans this season, got eliminated kind of, I think, unceremoniously. I kind of feel like it came a little bit out of nowhere. How much of that do you think was a product of just the edit not knowing kind of what to do with someone like Haley, who did decent at like a couple of tribal councils, and of course she was the merge boot and they try to make them flashy, and also how much of it was a product of that? Honestly, I think Haley, she could play a great game, but she kind of just got screwed a little bit, and she just couldn't get her, her knife in, that she couldn't get started on the mountain. She never really had a chance to take off this season. That's how I felt about her.
The problem is this: Haley's best performances were at tribal council, and it was good enough in the pre-merge situations to kind of get her out of hot water when Caleb was, such an obvious threat compared to her. The fact that her original tribe were so far down in numbers kind of made it difficult for her to really have any political pull, if you ask me. I'm confused that she was going based on the edit she was getting because I feel like they kept focusing on. I mean, obviously I got it wrong. Obviously, it wasn't as bad as some people's winners picks, but to that end, at least I have that in my cap. It was sad. I was sad to see her go.
Well, and what do you think doomed her gameplay? Because I know Elise Anderson, who's on Torch Service, is a fantastic kind of after show. She's going to talk about it. But what do you think doomed her gameplay? And what do you think us super fans who put so much invested time and energy into thinking she was going to win got wrong?
I mean, I got it wrong too, Colin. So just shooting from the hip and not having had any time to really process because of all the stuff that happened in the episode, I would say her tribe getting absolutely decimated. A lot of doing well in Survivor is luck. Sandra was playing well until, boom, she was stuck on that tribe with just Varner and a bunch of Tabuas. Malcolm was in a good situation until all of that happened. Sometimes you just get screwed by bad luck. And Haley not having anybody from her original tribe and being so under the thumb of Brad Culpepper and Sierra. That's what doomed her. Circumstance, in large part, doomed her.
Well,
that and the fact that she, you know,
I will say this,
mm-hmm.
and this may cause a little bit of a rift. I will say, we all looked at Haley as a very smart, intelligent woman who could play a good game of Survivor. I do think she had issues connecting with people on that social
mm-hmm.
fundamental level that we see.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that was how she presents herself. Because she presents herself as very intelligent and very well-read, very mature. And it reminds me a lot of Mari, who I actually said wasn't going to do super hot last season. And I turned out to be right, where you have these people who, on paper, they seem like good fits, but if they can't really make that social connection, they're screwed. Hell, Liz and Karong, I think, fits that mode very well. Super intelligent, super bright. But if you can't get those social bond goings, what goods are you?
That's true. That's true. It was very telling that when they had their emotional breakdown about not winning pizza last episode, the two people who weren't shown were Michaela, who shuts down, and that Haley was not shown with them bonding as well. And that's a valid point as to why she maybe didn't win. And it didn't get picked up.
Billy, real quick, what was your kind of take on Haley? I mean, I don't know how you thought about her pregame, but, you know, it was just kind of sad just to see her kind of get axed away like this when there's so much behind her.
A lot of her game was her just literally living up to the name of the show, surviving. She was a leaf in the wind, a piece of seaweed caught in a tide, and was I the only one hoping that she would have gotten naked, like to prove that she didn't have the idol? Like, I was like, call her on it, call her. She's like, I'll do it if someone calls me on it, but not if nobody calls me on it.
I thought someone was
call her on it.
For real.
Well, and Ben, what I want to know is this, because when Haley said the whole thing about ask me, I'll dump out everything. Ask me, I'll let you strip search me. I figured the reason why no one called her on that was because in the future, no one else wants to have to live up to that expectation. Where if suddenly that becomes a norm at tribal council where, hey, go through all my shit so you know I don't have an idol, that could hurt everybody. And that's when no one called her on it.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it because, like, that would set a precedent, like, making an expectation if you, like, are perspective, be like, show yourself. So I think
that would have been a game changer.
If Haley would have gotten naked to show she didn't have an idol, that would have been game-changing. But then the future of Survivor would have been everyone's getting naked at tribal council.
Like, it literally would have changed the game of Survivor.
It would have.
Like, as the title says.
It would have made it a bit more naked and afraid instead of Survivor, but I guess you guys are right. But, like, do we really want to, like, when I play Survivor, do y'all really want to see me be like, all right, guys, I don't have the idol and strip down? America doesn't want to see that.
I would be the opposite.
I would keep it in my underwear. Like, let's be real. Like, it's not like you're gonna be stripped down all the way down. Like,
yeah, that's true.
I would have been like, oh, you caught me. I've been like, you caught me. I have the idol. I pull out my dick and go, I gotcha.
Well, if you're gonna get voted out, that's one way to do it. And let's be clear, Ben, you just said an interesting point, and I know the viewers listening are probably fascinated by this. Here's some fucking Survivor perspective for you. Yeah, you'd probably strip down to your underwear. Last season, Adam kept the idol in his underwear. We even had the hashtag crotch idol. So no, having people strip down doesn't necessarily mean they don't have idols. I can't believe this is where this conversation is going. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to move on to the next little bit. Steven, a little piece of information that I'm surprised wasn't talked about more was there was this brief moment where Zeke, I believe, I'm not 100% sure who he was talking to, but Michaela walked up.
Mm-hmm.
And Michaela turned to Zeke and said, what did you say about me? And then Zeke said, I told everyone you were a challenge beast and that you wear your emotions on the face. And what that meant was that Zeke had been telling people all about Michaela from their past season. And I'm surprised no one else brought that up because it kind of shows the kind of game Zeke was playing. So, Alicia, you have Zeke doing stuff like telling people all about Michaela's past game. Does that mean we shouldn't be too surprised about tonight when we see Zeke's name was on the chopping block? I know we already talked about him, but I actually see this as almost an error in his gameplay of a sign of him playing a bit too hard.
Yeah, I mean, he's a player that plays too hard. We've seen that time and time again because, again, he's just constantly thinking, what will get me ahead? What will get me in a good position? And how will I control what's happening? it's just another way of doing that, giving everyone a little like background info into Michaela. So maybe it's Michaela and not him, or maybe it builds trust somehow. You know, he's just kind of using what he can when he can. So.
And I think that's fair. So Ty, real quick, something else, I want you to talk about that, but something else you kind of hit on tonight was that Mana has been decimated. And I'm looking at the Wikipedia page right now. Aubrey, Michaela, Troyzan. Those are the only 3 people who are started on Mana that are still in. The only 2 Nuku people that have been voted out were Malcolm, who was voted out for kind of BS reasons, and Ozzy, who got voted out because he's freaking Ozzy member.
Malcolm
I'm sorry, JT, who was voted out, and JT because he made that huge mistake, and then Ozzy, who was voted out because obviously he's Ozzy. So I made a hypothesis about 3 episodes ago saying this could turn into a pagonging. You have to admit, it's kind of looking like somewhat of a pagonging for the Mana people. Is there any way to overcome this? And of course, talk about that Zeke stuff you mentioned as well.
All right. The Zeke thing, I will say this, like, Michaela came and asked him a question. We don't know for sure that he was telling everyone that. He may have just come up with an obvious thing to say about Michaela because everyone out there has seen that Michaela wears her emotions on her face. If Michaela comes and demands an answer, if you don't give her an answer, God only knows what will happen to you. So you have to say something to her in that moment.
Right.
I would defend him on that point. As far as the pagonging situation, I mean, Mana's been decimated, but I don't think it matters anymore because you've got Michaela, who is a player helping Suri, a non-mana. You have Troyzan, who is very much wrapped up in the Brad Sierra train, and they are not manas. And you've got Aubrey, who kind of, until this episode, she seems, I guess, pretty much in Camp Suri now, but she was talking about how much she loved Brad Culpepper just last episode. So I don't know that any of them necessarily stand out as huge, obvious targets that they'll be the next 3 boots or anything like that. That doesn't seem to be where we're heading now with everyone else trying to run the show.
Okay, so basically it's a situation where I think maybe the Nuku people think we can take out the Manas whenever. You know, that's an afterthought now because we're at the merge. So who knows? I will say, though, I would be shocked if any Mana members actually win this game, and it just goes to show how important those early immunity challenges are. Because here's the thing. You're playing Survivor. You decide to throw out a challenge to vote out Billy Garcia, and next thing you know, you're getting second place in Survivor Cook Islands, and then you're getting voted out for a 4th freaking time in Survivor game change. Oh, yeah, 5th time.
Well,
or 6th.
No, I'm sorry.
6th.
No, yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, no, sorry, 5th. Because he didn't give out on Cook Islands.
Anyways, Ozzy's been voted out a whole freaking bunch. Alicia, where are you? Come back here because you have to mourn and you have to defend Ozzy. She's not here. I don't know where she went. Anyways.
She went to go mourn on her own.
Billy.
She's puking from the thought of Ozzy losing.
Yeah. Billy, what the hell is it about Ozzy that makes it so he can't win this game? You played with him. You've seen him outside of Survivor. What is it? What is it?
Ozzy's strength is great for the early part of the game. It's terrible for the late part of the game, or doesn't help him in the later part of the game. Ozzy's weakness can be hidden in the early part of the game, and then it glares in the later part of the game. And that weakness is the strategic part, the human chess part. When he does do strategic moves, he tends to be a bit of a riverboat gambler, or he does a lot of big moves that are completely unnecessary, just so he can bet big, put all the chips on one number and let's roll the dice. And that's the way Ozzy has played in the past. This time he tried to go back to the Cook Islands game, where he just focused on the things that got him, that made him a legend, and all that's great for the early part. But then what do you do once you merge? Where's your strategy? How do you control your own fate? It's just that's his weakness, and at the merge it glares.
And Ty, what I want to know is why now, Ozzy? Why not wait a little while longer? Or did they say, hey, he lost this immunity challenge, let's just cut his throat now? Do you think there was any merit in maybe keeping Ozzy around, and your own thoughts?
I mean, let's put it this way. Ozzy didn't play that badly this time. I can't believe I'm saying that because I do not like Ozzy, unlike the next person who I'm sure inevitably will speak about this. That being said, he didn't play that badly. He realized that Sandra made good points about the cow wrong people, and he was weirded out by Ty because you should be weirded out by Ty. He didn't necessarily have bad instincts this time. Why on earth was he trying to get Ty to go down? Why on earth was he making a big deal about how I'm going to win this challenge? Like, I think is what got rid of him. That and the fact that Debbie sat on a boat with his mortal enemy 2 episodes ago. That can't possibly be coincidence. She did not let Cochran down, that's assuredly. But I don't think Ozzy played that bad. He was going to work with Sari, who he knew could keep the target off of him because better to work with her than work against her. Like, he had these thoughts in mind. It's just that challenge and him being such a physical threat and them being so bad at challenges for the most part. Save for the fact that Ty is tiny and does a lot of yoga. Like, I mean, I don't think, as glad as I am to see him gone, I don't think it's his fault. I don't know what he really could have done other than tonight.
And that's kind of where I kind of agree with you, because it reminds me of a situation, and this is going to be a little abstract, take it with me, where we were talking about how Joe's could win Survivor Blood versus Water. And no matter, we all did this, all the panelists, we couldn't really figure out how Jervis wins Blood versus Water, you know, without a whole bunch of crazy crap going on. And it's kind of in a similar situation with Ozzy, where he was put on his tribe, he was doing typical Ozzy things, and unless, you know, luck gets crazy, he finds an idol, it is hard to picture someone like him being able to win. And also, we can't deny the fact that his social game, while a little bit better this time, still wasn't great. But I agree with you, Ty. I actually think he didn't make any of the glaring mistakes he made in past seasons, but he's still Ozzy, and he kind of had to go. Alicia, though, Ozzy is the person who you love and you intend to marry. So I want to hear you cry, pontificate, just do whatever you got to do to release all these Ozzy feelings so we can move on to other matters.
Okay. So first of all, you notice that I'm wearing black tonight. I literally dug through my drawers to find black to wear. The first tank top said "just drunk" in gold sparkly letters, so I couldn't wear that. So I came up with this. But I'm sad. Like I was really excited that Ozzy was coming back.
You're the only point, but that's
as his game progressed, I was really excited to see him not be the, you know, typical every Ozzy that everyone loves to hate, like the cocky but he can back it up, you know, guy who's just kind of douchey to everyone. He was really, you know, like being more low key. He was still like providing for people, but not being like, I am literally the shit about it. You know, and so I'm bummed that he's out. We all love making fun of his pigtails every challenge.
All right, I'm about to cut you off because hearing you talk about Ozzy, how great, is boring.
Sad to see him go.
All right, Ben, let's talk about Ozzy. What could he have done differently? Because me and Ty don't know. I don't think any of us know.
I think that he was just being complacent. I think that he was assuming that things are going according to what he thought was going on. And I think the only thing he could have done better is be more aware of what could have been happening with the tribe. But I don't think many of us saw what Debbie was ultimately ending up doing. So I don't think it's really a fault on Ozzy's gameplay as much as a compliment of Debbie's gameplay, I would say.
Well, and let's talk about that, because while I will say, yes, the edit gives Debbie the credit for the Ozzy vote, even though I think at any point in time Ozzy could have been a pretty easy big target, what does that speak of to kind of the craziness of the season, where it feels like none of this stuff, none of these alliances are really that solid? And that's kind of the final thing I want to talk about, which is how much alliance building and relationships did we see tonight that are actually going to translate moving forward, and kind of basically, where the hell is this game now? I mean, there's 11 people. There's a lot of crap going on. I am going to start with you, Stephen, but what do you actually think is going on? Do you think there's going to be big alliances that stay put, or is this going to be madness?
Well, real quick about tonight, I have a hunch on why we didn't see a lot of the dynamics tonight. It's because I think there's a lot of pre-games going into this late game portion of the game. And of course, production and the editors are not going to say, you know, they're not going to show a confessional of, I don't know, Brad being like, yeah, like, I talked to so-and-so before we went out here, and, you know, we're going to align and this, that, the other. So I think that's part of what we're seeing, is that like there's probably some pre-games coming into it, but I also think that with reference to the fluidity of the dynamics, I don't want to use that cursed phrase voting blocks because it's disgusting, but I think people are I don't think anything is like set in stone yet.
Well, and then that's the thing is I feel like we have like Serena and Michaela, they're together. We have Sierra and Brad, they're together. Everything else kind of crazy. And I believe the phrase was vote cluster, done by my love Hannah Ty, and that's kind of where we're at. These vote clusters functioning. A trust cluster. Thank you, Stephen.
Yes. And that seems to be where we're at. I mean, I think Debbie thinks that they have a strong alliance of 6 because Debbie is Debbie, and Debbie believes what she wants to believe, but I don't know. I thought that the merge might give us clarity. I mean, I think I know who the winner is, and I said that earlier tonight. And I think that she's the winner based upon the fact that she has the game most likely to deal with jumping back and forth between these cursed trust clusters, if you will. She's a bridge between Andrea and Zeke. Sarah is. And that's the only reason that the non-majority people from tonight, rather, could come together and easily be the majority next week. And then that could disband again. And it could reform again.
And that's as long as it doesn't blow up in her face.
We don't know.
And Billy, I just want to hear your thoughts. Like, is there any kind of way we can sit down and try to plot this out of how this is going to end? Yes, Ty thinks Sarah's going to win. I don't know who you think is going to win, but like literally, how do we see this game evolving moving forward?
I think Andrea being mad as hell at Zeke, they wouldn't be making such a big deal out of it if it wasn't if it wasn't going to play a major factor in how the game is going to play out. So I think instead of looking at trust clusters, we should be looking at the clusterfuck that's kind of brewing up the big explosion that trust clusterfuck. I like that, Steven.
The trust cluster. Real quick, what do you guys were saying we should name this episode? Because there was a couple good ones, better than you buy Marshalls. Alex Cash is finally joining us as we're wrapping up. Alex, I'm going to talk to you in just 2 seconds.
Okay, hi.
Managed to be an hour and 10 minutes late, but it's okay.
I as far as I knew, I wasn't on this week, so.
Well, it's a merge week. Everyone's on. I'm muting you, though, real quick, okay? I'm going to get back to you. Okay. Oh, my goodness. What a trust clusterfuck this has turned out to be. Ty, you wanted to speak real quick before I jump to Ben about his thoughts about where this game is going to wind up.
I was just going to make the point that, like, Jay was super mad at Adam last season, and then they ended up working together, and then not working together and working together. So I don't think that Andrea being mad in a confessional next episode means shit. I don't think it means anything.
I don't know. I kind of sided with Billy. I definitely feel like she's a woman scorned. That's how they're playing her up. So we'll see how that turns out. Ben, what is happening? Is this a true trust cluster, or am I wrong? And the Brad Sierra alliance is going to be in the final 2. Like, how do you view this?
I think it's very much dictated by what happens with the next episode. I don't think that we clearly got any direction with this episode. I think that it's very much going to be decided by what ends up happening with the next episode.
And I like that. I feel like that's a good point to make, is that normally the merge episode gives us clarity. These 2 merge episodes has it, but maybe after next week we'll go, there's a majority of 7, there's a minority of 4. This is how it's probably going to shake out. So it's very good. So, Alex, you missed all of this stuff. All right. So my 2 questions to you is, 1, where the hell have you been? And 2, how do you see this all playing out? Is this a trust cluster situation, or do you think there's any majority alliances that could prevail and take us to the end?
Okay. Where I was catching up on RuPaul's Drag Race.
And respect.
And what I think is going to happen is I think it's not going to be quite as trust cluster, because I'm seeing more, I think it's more of a tale of 2 sides than it is like everybody against everybody. but there will be some good flips in there as well, because we have seen enough relationships between people formed before the merge that things could get very wacky very fast.
All right, that's fair. And I want to point out, Ty just made a fantastic point. We also have idols in the possession of players who aren't necessarily the best strategic. Ty has 2, Troyzan has 1. There's probably another idol floating out there. So with all of that being said, viewers that have followed us this far as we talked about everything, we don't know. And that's just what makes Survivor fantastic, and that's what makes it great, and that's what makes us tune in every single week. And be sure to tune into our show next week. Will we have Rob on finally? Maybe. I don't know. It's another mystery. But it's going to be fantastic either way. I want to thank Alex for joining us for about 2 seconds. I want to thank Stephen. I want to thank Ty. I want to thank Ben. I want to thank my wonderful co-host, Alicia Garza. And, of course, I want to thank the amazing Billy Garcia from Survivor Cook Islands for joining us tonight. Anyways, everybody, have a fantastic evening. Good night.
Good night.
Night.